One of the aspects of this lesson is to talk about the different types of ways that we can save money, the different types of accounts, and kind of like the level of risk and interest that you can get at each of them. The three main categories that we kind of want to discuss here, there's three main ones. We're talking about cash, we're talking about fixed income, and then we can talk about equity investments. And as you kind of go up the scale here, risk goes up, but also the potential to make more. So usually interest goes up as you kind of go over these ones, as well as you kind of go up the scale from cash. Not really any risk with it. You have it as liquid money. You can spend it as you will or save it. It doesn't grow any interest, but there's no risk in just having money. Fixed income, it's kind of like the middle of the pack, kind of a moderate amount of risk to low, I would say, though. Not a ton of interest, but it takes a long time for you to get your money. And then we have equity investments, which are kind of a higher risk, but higher reward type of situation. Cash is things like savings accounts and checking accounts. That's all kind of cash. Think about where you would actually just store money that you have access to it at any time that you would want. So a savings, think of like RBC, TD, that kind of stuff. Savings, checking, under your bed, like piggy bank, that kind of stuff. Fixed income, that would be like GICs, guaranteed investment certificates, any kind of like bonds or saving bonds, I would say. Kind of that's kind of it for that. There's some other ones as well in that, but that would be the typical one. Equity investments, we're looking at like stocks, mutual funds. Mutual funds are a little safer than just straight up stocks, but both are basically the same. And that's kind of like the general gist of it. You have literally no risk with things like this, but you get basically no reward out of it. You get no interest out of it, or very, very little. You could say that you have like a high savings account or something, but if you actually look at details, it's probably like 1% or something minute, very, very little, because you have access to your money at any time. It's just like a safer place to put your money than under your bed if in case you get robbed, but basically you're getting no interest for both of them. Fixed income, GICs, low amount of risk. You're guaranteed to get a certain amount of money back, but it's going to take 20, 25 years to do that. So it's very, very low in terms of percentage that you'll get back. Plus, it's going to take a long time to get. It is guaranteed, though, but you have to wait for a long time, and it's very low interest, maybe like 4%, 3%. Bonds, same thing, just long time, not a lot of risk, just not a lot of reward. Stocks, mutual funds, that's when you get things like and then tanks sometimes, or it keeps on going up. But both of these things can have a high level risk, but high level of reward. Yeah, and it's more kind of over I'm not going to say short term, but it's shorter term than a fixed income. You could, of course, play long term with stocks, and that's how you should play them over long term. But just you have to go ups and downs with it. Where fixed income would be slightly kind of like this on the way up, where stocks can be like whoa, kind of like a roller coaster ride, kind of going up. You kind of don't really need to know what the look of them is because that's kind of company dependent, but just kind of like so that you kind of get a picture in your head. So let's go back to the question now. Compare the following portfolios for strengths and weaknesses. If you were a financial advisor, what advice would you give these investors? Let's take a look at Marin. Marin, she has almost $30,000 in a Canada savings bond. This is essentially a GIC. This is fixed income. Canada savings bond, that's kind of like a savings account, but it's a government regulated one, so that's a guaranteed investment certificate. That's a GIC. I should label that as AC. I'll just erase that. So that's labeled as a GIC. She's going to get some money back on that one for sure. Let's go ahead and let's look at savings account. She's got about $3,000 in there. This is cash though. She can access that at any time. So all in all, kind of let's just say that Marin, she's got $30,000 altogether. Let's just kind of make it a nice round number here. I know I'm jipping her over a couple, but that's fine. She's got 3,000 tied up as cash. Well, that's not terrible, but I mean, okay, sure. She got about 10% of her money as cash. Let's kind of round this stuff. 10% is cash. But then she's got the basically 90% of her money into GICs. This is not like a terrible approach, but it's not diverse. A real big weakness here is that there's no diversity. She's guaranteed to make some money, but she could be making a lot more if she decided to maybe go into some other types of fixed incomes, maybe even some equity investments. I would kind of encourage her to say you need to get into the equity investment category. Not by a huge amount, but definitely doesn't need to put in 90% of her money into GICs. We can talk about different splits of it. Even a 50-50 split might be decent with that money. Maybe 15,000 of her money can be put into something like stocks, rather than have it in GICs. Or if we wanted to, and she is capable enough, maybe we can even make this into something like, all right, well, let's put something like $20,000 into stocks here. So she can have a little bit more of a balanced portfolio. It's a little bit higher on the risk side. We can put another, let's say $10,000, or not 10,000, but we can put a little bit less money, maybe 5,000 or 7,000 into the GICs. So that's the fixed income, and then she can still have her 10% in cash afterwards. That'd be a nice little thing. It's favoring the stocks a little bit, but that's okay, especially if she's in a age bracket that she can see the worth of this. But she should definitely have some sort of things in stocks. She's way too GIC heavy. That's definitely the weakness. We can kind of give a little bit of strength. The strength for her would be just like she's got guaranteed. She's got a lot of guaranteed income in the GIC. So I would kind of label that as pretty decent in terms of her strengths. She's got that. She's got 10% as cash too, which is nice for her money. But that's really all she's got going for herself. Not too much else after that. If we take a look at Philip, we can clearly see that, let's call this 4,000, just to make the numbers just a little easier. Let's call this 4,000. Let's call this 10,000. We'll call this 6,000, and we'll call this 12,000. So what's that going to be? That's 20,000, 32,000 about, roughly 32,000. So $32,000. He still has a good amount in cash. So that's going to be his checking account. He's got some good fixed income levels going on as well in his term deposits and his GICs. And then he's got some stocks as well. Philip has a pretty diverse portfolio. There's nothing really too weak about it. It's a diverse portfolio. He's not favoring any one thing than the other. Over his total spread, he's got 11,000 in stocks, which is great. He could be more aggressive if he wants to. I kind of said that with Marin over here, that she could be a little bit more aggressive if she wanted to with the stocks. Again, that's kind of depending on the age group of what they are. And the question doesn't really state what age group it is, but just kind of an FYI. I wouldn't change much about Phillips. He's got good cash, he's got good fixed, and he's got a good amount of stocks. He could maybe favor a little bit more stocks rather than the term deposit, maybe a 50-50 split between them. He's going about, it looks like about around 16,000 here. But he's got 12,000 here. So he might be playing a little bit on the safer side with this, which is fine, but he could easily switch these numbers around, or maybe just kind of balance them out to be 50-50 and then still have a little bit over 10% in cash again. He's got more cash than Marin does. Could just be what he's comfortable with. He could kind of dip down a little bit lower into his cash to make about 10% cash that he has to liquefy immediately and then put that into other stocks. But I think he's a diverse portfolio here. I can't really see any sort of weaknesses about this, but a lot of strengths on this portfolio. And that's kind of typically more what we would like to see in a financial portfolio. Some guaranteed stuff, some stocks, and definitely to have some just some regular cash flow. Kind of a long video. I kind of want to cap it here. Make sure that you do a little bit of the reading of these ones. It's more just common sense than anything. You don't have to have a special degree to, have a little bit of sense about where investment should lie. Of course, there are degrees for that. And that's why we do have, different things in banks and otherwise and different advisors to tell us how to deal with money and wealth management teams. But in this case, just not putting all your eggs in one basket is a pretty good saying to abide by here. Not having all your money in just a fixed income and kind of spreading it out is always a better idea than not.